All right, so images are written. I've put the micro SD cards into the two Raspberry Pis, and I've plugged one of them. We're going to use it for the Diretta host. It's the gray one, the Raspberry Pi 4 in my configuration. I've connected power to that one alone, and I also have a network connection. I've plugged the Ethernet cable directly into the back of that Raspberry Pi for now, not using the USB adapter. So essentially this gray one, but I've plugged the network cable directly into the network port instead of through this pluggable adapter. And then I looked on my network to see what its IP address is. You can use the Fing app, or you can use whatever your router configuration is. I've been able to find it here. So I see that the IP address is .244. So if I go back to my instructions, we're up here in the core system configuration that we're going to perform one at a time on both of the devices. Um, this is kind of the workflow for this dock, is these little copy boxes here. So you click on this copy uh, little icon here in the corner of these boxes, and that'll copy the text to your clipboard, and then you can paste it into a terminal window and just follow the instructions or proceed from there. So for here, the IP address is this .244, so I'm going to put that in. It's asking me now for a password, and the password is from the email in Piero. I'm not going to say it here because it's top secret, but you will have the password in your email. And I can see that I'm now logged into this Raspberry Pi. And so one of the first things we want to do is make sure that we have a clean machine ID. My shrink process resets the machine ID anyway, but I'm going to run this just to be completely sure. So now I have to put in the root password, which is also the root or sudo password is also in the email from Piero. Then I'm going to set the host name. You can see that by default it's just Audio Linux RPI4. This is going to be my Diretta host, so I'm going to change the host name to Diretta host, and then for the other one I'll change it to Diretta Target. At this point we could power off, but I found it's just faster to keep going for a little while longer, and then we'll get to the other Raspberry Pi here in a bit. So one of the things we want to do is make sure that the clock is up to date. Older versions of Audio Linux had this problem, and so I've left this step in the dock. It's not strictly necessary here, but it doesn't take very long, so we'll just go ahead and run it. We just want to make sure that we have software installed and up to date to keep the clock synced. The Raspberry Pi, by default, doesn't have a real-time clock battery, and so every time it boots up, it needs to have its clock set. But if I look now, the clock is correct. The time zone is Piero's time zone, not mine. But we're going to fix that next. Piero has a section in his menus for setting the time zone, but I just wrote my own little thing here that I think is maybe a little bit faster, more convenient for me anyway. So I'm going to choose 57 since I'm in the US, and then I'm going to choose 3 for Arizona. And so now if I check the date, it's 9:34 p.m., which is about right for here. There's sort of a section in the dock for working around a Pacman update issue. Again, this applies to earlier versions, but I've left it in here in case somebody finds this document and has an older version Audio Linux. This isn't strictly necessary anymore, but one of the things that I'll do that I've not put in the document that I found is helpful. So you're getting sort of the behind the scenes instructions. I'm going to go ahead and edit this mirrors list because I found that some of these mirrors can be a little bit slow. The default one here seems like it's a little bit slow, so I'm going to comment that out. I'm just going to uncomment the one in California. I'm in Arizona, which is closer to California, and so this just seems to make the rest of this process go faster. And I'm just going to, I could run this whole process here, but I'm just going to do this last bit. And it shows that we're up to date. So that's good. And now I'm going to do step 4. We're going to go through the menuing process. What we're doing now is just getting the operating system for this device as up to date as we can before we start layering other commands and software on it. So we're going to go into Piero's menu, and I'm going to click on the install and update menu, and then we're going to choose next to last one, this update system option here. It's going to drop us back to the terminal, and it's just going to do some quick operating system updates to make sure that we have all the latest packages and stuff like that. So it usually runs pretty quickly. Um, I have seen some cases where this AUR service is offline, and so we have to do some, come back the next day if some of these things are not up. So it's good to. I know these things scroll by fast, but it's good to read what's showing up on the screen and see if there's anything that looks concerning in terms of error messages. And if you have some problems, you bought support from Piero, so by all means, send email to support@audiolinux.com and get help if you feel like you need it. But this is kind of running along. We're going to let it finish. I may pause the video so that you don't have to wait, but it should finish in just a moment. All right, that process is finished. Now at the very end of all this stuff, it just says press return to exit. So I'm going to do that, and it tells us now that our system's been updated. So the next thing on the instructions that I say to do is to update the menu. That's this option at the top here. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And it's going to ask for the email address that used at the time of purchase. So I'm going to fill that out along with a password that I think it's going to need after that. And again, this is information, that email that you receive from Piero after purchasing. So you'll fill out all that information, and then the menu update will take place. I'm going to pause for that part. All right, I entered the information, and now we have Audio Linux menu 442, which is current for what we're doing now. So we're finished with the menu updates, and we're now going to get started with the network configuration. This is the Diretta host, and so we've got some specific configurations for Diretta host. I'm just going to get out of this menu system so that we can get back to the terminal. And you can read some of the notes in this documentation, but we're at this point-to-point network configuration piece here. We're going to keep rolling through until we get to the end of this, and then we'll shut this down and perform similar steps on the target machine. So the first thing we need to do is create a network configuration file for this point-to-point link that we need for the Diretta protocol. The Diretta protocol uses IPv6, not IPv4, so you might be wondering why we're configuring this with an IPv4 address. And the reason is just for maintenance level activities, I like to have all of that happen over IPv4 because I can easily turn that on and off when I'm not doing maintenance. And then just allow that point-to-point network link to only carry audio traffic go through IPv6. And then also it's IPv4 is just a little bit easier for troubleshooting for people because more people are familiar with it. So I'm going to set up this next network file. The first file defines the IP address of the Diretta host on the internal network adapter of the computer. And then the next one, we're going to use DHCP to configure that USB adapter once it's connected. So that's what that second is. And then there's a en.network file that comes with a distribution. We're going to get rid of that because we don't need it. We have a more specific network configuration depending on whether we're using the wired network interface or the USB network interface on this computer. So we'll add an entry to the etc host file so that we can get to the Diretta target. So that'll save us a little bit of time. We're going to turn IP forwarding on so that we can make this Diretta host computer that has two network interfaces kind of behave like a packet forwarding router for the target. And then this is more of that forwarding and IP masquerading configuration. I'm not going to go into too many details here, but you can look at that later on and let me know if you have questions. And then we need a special driver for the particular USB to Ethernet adapter. So I'm going to have a hint in this system so that it can easily find the driver. And there is a MOTD script that Piero provides that has a bug that doesn't work with devices that have multiple network interfaces. So I'm just going to install a version of the script that handles multiple network interfaces a little bit cleaner. And then we're going to power this computer off and proceed with getting up the target. I'm not going to show you all of the steps for setting up the target. We're going to pick up in the next section with just the point-to-point network configuration for the target, because all the rest of the stuff up to that point is the same for both computers. All right, be back in a bit.